Hey everyone, it's your favorite podcast. It's Helping the Brave. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chloe Honjo.
I guess I'm Ed Parco, the other host. Good job there, Chloe.
Kristen Babick.
Who's our guest
Greg
today?
Zerr.
Chloe, who's our guest today?
So this is Greg Zerr. So him and I served together for a few years. So Greg, tell us kind of the story at the beginning of ever since you turned 18, knowing that your story starts at 18, unlike most officers that I know.
Yeah, well, so once upon a time, I grew up in South Dakota, and I didn't really have money for college, so I tried to enlist, and I almost got suckered into an open contract with some salty recruiters who took me out to pizza once, but I ended up earning a commission to the Naval Academy, and was commissioned a Marine officer and served on active duty for about 12 years before I punched out. And now I'm a civilian, but also a Marine Corps reservist, and I work for Marathon Petroleum, which is located in Findlay, Ohio. So that's the short version.
That was too short. I guess that's the end of our show today. Thanks for joining us.
So somewhere along the way, I met Chloe, and we served together for about 3 years, and spent 2 years together in the Puzzle Palace, working at Headquarters Marine Corps.
And for most of you don't know, I'm sorry. For most of you know, normally Mohawk Matt is here, but he had something to do today at Naval X, and so he'll be joining us later. So you're going through your little story there, since I don't know who you are, so let's go back a little bit. So Naval Academy, right? What year?
Yep. I graduated in 2008.
Okay. Did we win that year? Because I'm prior Navy. And
we did. Yeah, okay. We won all 4 years, actually.
All right, there we go. Did you play on any of the sports there while you were there, or you just focused on your
track and cross country?
Okay.
Yeah.
Kristen, did you have a question? Because it looked like you had a question.
I was going to say track. I love track. What'd you run?
Middle distance and a little bit of distance running as well.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, then so you graduated Naval Academy. I'm sure top of your class. Where did you go after that? So where did you get shipped to out of there?
So I was a aviation maintenance officer. So I ended up doing follow-on training in sunny Milton, Florida. And after that, I spent a few years out in San Diego. So I was a division officer in MALS 11 for my first tour. And then I spent a operational tour with VMGR 352, which is a KC-130 squadron in San Diego. Back to MALS 11 for a assistant department head tour, and then over to VMFAT 101, which is the West Coast Hornet training squadron, for a follow-on assistant department head tour. And then after that, I went to Naval Postgraduate School, where I studied operations research for a couple of years. And after that, no good deed goes unpunished. So I went to Headquarters Marine Corps and worked for the Expeditionary Energy Office, which was at the time a new staff's function that worked for the commandant. And the purpose of the organization was to evaluate, test, and plan for operational energy. So all the considerations that go with logistics support for batteries, fuel, anything like that. And then after that, then I went to what was at the time the G10, so the Force Preservation Directorate, before it was fashionably renamed the Marine Corps Directorate of Analytics and Performance Optimization. So that's where I met Chloe. Spent a few years there, and then that's when I transitioned off active duty.
So, Greg, I recalling several conversations that you and I had, mostly because we worked exactly 6 feet away from each other for 2 years.
Yep.
But so what I think is super interesting about Greg's story, and I'm sure he'll get further into it after asking this awesome question, which is Greg's interesting in the fact that he mid-career shifted, right? So typically in the military, you'll see a lot of us that are grandfathered in with high 3 retirements stick it out for the punishment of 20 years after your line of departure, your departure of no return, right? After your first 4, it's 4 or 20. So Greg, can you kind of explain to us why you decided to come off of active duty after 12 years and kind of how you ended up working at in Findlay, Ohio, regarding your background and how you don't use aviation maintenance for any of that.
Yeah, so all good questions. So the first one about transitioning off active duty, most people once they get to the 10-year point, because the legacy retirement system was you had to do 20 or you got nothing. So the 10-year point was sort of like halfway. If you made it halfway, you'll just grind out the remainder of your time in service and graduate or retire with a pension. And so when I realized, kind of where I was in timing and sort of what I wanted out of my life, I thought about I could just take another couple of sets of orders and I could stick it out for 20. But I have 2 young kids, and my next tour would have definitely been in the Fleet Marine Forces, and it would have been a lot of travel, and there's no guarantee after that what the next assignment would have brought. So I was looking for something that was a little bit more stable, something that would allow me to spend time at home and coach Little League and get to take my kids to the bus stop and pick them up in the afternoon. So you definitely can have that on active duty, but where I was and sort of the next few assignments, they weren't going to be that type of 9-to-5 work. So that was part of, I guess, the biggest part of wanting to transition off active duty. But as for your next part about not using aviation maintenance, when I went to the Naval Postgraduate School, I studied operations research, which is applied mathematics, and math was not my strong suit, right? Math was not my strong suit, and I learned that I actually liked it a lot, and I liked applying it. I liked solving problems, solving complicated problems, and my time in the Marine Corps was fun while I got to use that, but transitioning back to active duty or leaving a staff assignment would have been going back to aviation maintenance. And I realized that I didn't enjoy that quite as much as I did applying math. So that was a big driver for wanting to do something different.
So your experience in regards to going to graduate school, how did that help you transition out in the job that you have today? Because I think one of the biggest things that we're trying to do here is helping people take the skills that they learned in the military and applying them to commercial industry. And so when we talk about an infantryman or a submariner, right, these really niche jobs in the military, like there's no commercial submariners. Like that's
Right.
You're right. Like there's not like, oh yeah, Exxon's got a job where I can get on a submarine and it'll be super cool. It's like I don't know what to do, because outside of working for like a contracting company going back overseas like KBR or something like that, I think a lot of people struggle with their resumes. So how did you take what you learned at the Marine Corps, made you go do as for graduate school, and apply that as you were transitioning?
Well, it's kind of interesting when you're staring across the abyss of the transition. You get to be like a high school senior again, and what do you want to do when you grow up? And so I could have taken the skill set that I had from being an aviation maintenance officer and gone to work for some large commercial organization that has aircraft fleet maintenance or some other kind of vehicle overhaul or something like that. But that wasn't really what I wanted to do. That just wasn't my passion. And fortunate for me, the Marine Corps said, you're going to study math. And it turned out to be perfect career-wise timing because the growth, the explosion in the tech industry for folks with a data and analytics background made me very marketable in the civilian world. I mean, I had a lot of interviews for a lot of different roles, and nobody cared really what I did in the Marine Corps. It was all about, the skill set that I had in my graduate degree. So once I, got past yes, I know math, and yes, I can code, there were a lot of opportunities that were open, and it didn't really matter what I had done before that at all.
Interesting. So if you were to go back and transition all over again, what are your lessons learned now that you're on the other side of the yellow brick road, right? Through the tunnel and out the other side. For some of our listeners, what would you tell yourself? You know, so this pre-COVID, so it's been like a year now. But after you had made that decision.
Well, I guess maybe a little bit of context is kind of important. So I transitioned like at the pinnacle of the COVID extravaganza, if you will. So I left the office in DC on March 15th, never to return, basically. And my transition my terminal wasn't supposed to start until June 30th. But given everything that had happened, I basically had all of the necessary paperwork taken care of for an early transition date. I'd gotten all of my appointments taken care of, medical and all the miscellaneous stuff that you need to do when you exit active duty, which allowed me to take advantage of the chaos. And I was actually very concerned because I had a career lined up, and the bottom fell out of the economy. So, back up to February, I could basically do no wrong in transitioning off active duty. There were so many opportunities. The job market was really hot. The tech fields were hiring like crazy. And then, a month into the pandemic, it's like the world stopped. So I was very concerned that my position was going to be eliminated. The company that I was going to transition to work for was putting a hiring freeze in effect. And oh, by the way, I also was trying to sell my house, trying to purchase and remodel a new house and ship all my household goods. And no one knew what was going on because there were no movement orders that were in effect. The Marine Corps, in its infinite wisdom, didn't really have a good plan of action for what's going to happen with folks that are kind of in limbo. All the stuff that you need to have your admin take care of, the admin folks weren't working. So paperwork that could have easily just been filled out that day took weeks to route. So I probably have one of the most non-standard transitions, just because there was so much unknown about what was going on and what rules were going to be enforced. There was a point in time where there was discussions at the highest levels about essentially a stop loss to keep people from leaving. So, just a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty. But if I could do it all over again, I would have started even sooner than I did, mainly because you never know what's going to happen, and just trying to get the necessary medical appointments lined up when all the hospitals aren't seeing folks was incredibly stressful. Trying to figure out how to get paperwork moved from one location to another location when it's not being routed through the chains in the appropriate way. So I guess my advice would be, start as soon as possible. You should always start planning. And even if you don't intend to transition, even if you're unsure, plan like you will transition, so that way you're prepared. Make sure that you take advantage of all the services that the Marine Corps and the DoD offer. TRS, there's a lot of good opportunities that are in addition to the classes that they give. So if you haven't done any research on the workshops that are provided by the services, definitely take advantage of those. There's a lot of really good internships, Skill Bridge and Tech Connect, and all of those. Shift, a lot of veteran organizations that are led by vets that are designed to help you in the transition process. So given my timing, I didn't really get a chance to take advantage of those, but I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have probably tried to line up an internship or something along those lines.
Greg, I have a question. When did you start your transition? Was it 6 months out? I mean, because Chloe always says you should look a year out. How far out did you look?
So I seriously started the process about 2 years out.
Okay.
So my plan was I wanted to at least 6 months out have a job already lined up. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I wanted to live. So I started early because I wanted to to sort of evaluate those options. And it allowed me to take advantage of some good opportunities. There were some good career fairs where I was able to sort of meet folks from industry and evaluate companies that I'd never heard of. Got to learn more about positions I knew nothing about. And it even let me interview for jobs I knew I didn't want, which was probably one of the best things that I did. Because when I finally got to those interviews that for jobs that mattered, I had done a lot of sets and reps of having, all kinds of conversations, and that was really very beneficial. And I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not started early. So I would say 2 years is probably sufficient time if you're like me and don't know what you want to do.
Right. Now, we have a comment. They were asking, Francis, what do you do? So what exactly is your job title right now?
So my job title is Advanced Senior Analyst at Marathon Petroleum. And so my job is I'm an analytic advisor, and I work in the supply and marketing arm of the company. So Marathon Petroleum is the country's largest domestic refiner. So they take crude oil that you pump out of the ground and turn it into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and all kinds of other products. And so my job is applying math to solve everyday problems, whether that's looking at what markets we should invest in and how we should grow our retail business, to what opportunities exist to take advantage of price differentials or other market dynamics to help the company be more profitable. And all of that's been doubly important given COVID, where the margins for companies that produce gasoline have just been damaged, with destruction of demand because people aren't traveling, and especially jet fuel, where normally most companies make a lot of money. So being able to apply math to look at opportunities and also just solve problems. So, the Marine Corps, the military treat gives you a lot of opportunity to problem solve, to be a project manager and understand, how to take something that's completely unrelated to your background or training and just run with it. And so all of those things kind of rolled into one.
Kind of a question, non-military. How's that pipeline shut down? The pipeline affect your guys' industry?
Well, there's a lot of dynamics that are at play when it comes to pipelines carry a lot of not just crude oil from places in Texas or Pennsylvania or North Dakota, but they also carry refined product, and that's a lot of trucks and trains that have to be scheduled and have to move product if the pipelines don't ship. So pipelines are really efficient, and they're also really safe. So when those options aren't on the table, you have to do an awful lot of additional planning, and there's a lot of costs that are incurred as well. So the logistics planning of having to move hundreds of thousands of barrels of either raw oil, crude oil, or refined gasoline become really complicated pretty quickly.
So we have another comment or question from Francis. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes. So we don't really reprocess chemicals. That's not really our the company's footprint. It's primarily a crude oil distillation. So crude to heavy and light oils.
So she has one more. It says you can take waste chemicals and break it down in your refinery. So basically that's not what you do, though. That's not what you guys do, correct?
So we do. We have a large presence for blending and refining feedstocks of like corn oil, soybean oil, and all kinds of other biomaterials to make renewable grades of fuel. So as the country's largest refiner, we have a large presence in that. We own several subsidiaries that create feedstocks. So we do a lot of that, and basically any company that's doing a lot of refining has to do that today to meet the environmental standards.
You must have hired her today because she has one more.
New markets. What's your question about new markets?
Let's see if she throws it up there. Maybe are there new markets for what you're doing? I don't know. Go ahead, Chloe. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to make a wise ass comment, so it can wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So, new markets, there's emerging markets, as the dynamics change for who's demanding gasoline and, other types of fossil fuels. Some of that demand is an export market for developing countries or other places around the world. But also some of it is understanding the technology and creating new types of renewable fuels. So there's been a huge growth in renewable diesel. So that's a big area where Marathon is definitely a leader in the industry and producing a lot of renewable diesel for markets all across the country and the world.
I'm sorry, what's renewable diesel? How does that come?
Yeah, so your traditional diesel fuel, which is made just from straight oil out of the ground. So renewable diesel can be either a blend of reprocessed corn oil or other heavy fats, or just a completely created from corn feedstock or something else. So the idea is that it's partially non-fossil fuel related or all non-fossil fuel.
Okay.
So my smartass remark was, if Greg were to ever create a kids TV show that talks about math, his slogan is take math and help solve everyday problems, like Bill Nye the Science Guy. We said that, and I was just like, a little cartoon of Greg can show up and be like, hey kids, math is fun, and I'll be like, it's still not fun.
Yeah. So that's I hate to say that's a common misconception, but a lot of folks, when you start talking about something that's complicated, they turn off and they're not interested. And so it's actually a pretty good skill set that I learned in the Marine Corps is how to take math and not just make it fun, but also make it so that you can understand it and that it's intuitive to the problems that you're solving. So I had to spend a lot of time translating math to Marine. And so that turned out to be a pretty valuable skill set. And I think there are a lot of opportunities where once you get past this is a complicated topic and we're going to use something that's, pretty sophisticated here's the solution to the problem, and it makes sense intuitively. So being able to connect that, I think, is really important and something that I probably wouldn't have gotten that education had I not been in the military.
I have a question. Were you as good a student in grade school and high school as you were when you went through the military academy and the postgraduate? Or the same type of, or did you finally learn, wow, I really can enjoy math as I got older?
Yeah. So I would say study habits wise, I definitely have gotten a lot better as I got older, as I understood, that it's important. But when I went to high school, my high school actually didn't have any advanced math classes. So in order for me to go to the Naval Academy, I had to teach myself calculus. So I went to a secondhand bookstore and I got this like super old dusty book on calculus so that I could understand the principles of calculus. Because when I showed up, I had to take a placement exam, which I totally failed. So I got put in like remedial math classes, which looking back on it, it's pretty funny.
I think the military helps you grow up, and then and get better at stuff you weren't always good at before, and it gives you time. Because myself, I was a horrible student in high school. I mean, and I never really studied. I was lucky; I'd get B's. Never studied. But then go forward in college and everything else. Finally, as I grew up, I was like, "Wow, you really have to study and do this and move forward to get really good grades." So, we all grow up at our own.
Absolutely. And one of the things I think I learned is having such a big gap between college and then graduate school, you really appreciate how much you forget. And so it makes it even that much more important that you like learn the concepts. And in some cases, you kind of have to learn the concepts from first principles. So it gives you, I guess, maybe a better appreciation for it. But it was pretty painful to have to learn, math again from a fire hose.
Personal question. How old are your kids?
So my kids are 5 and 3, so they're still pretty little.
Right. So you haven't had to learn to try to do Common Core yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah, how's this going to go?
Yeah, that's a little different. Why can't we just go back to carry the one divide? Anyway, the old way. Actually, I heard a lot of parents have taught their kids the way they've learned while they were homeschooled. Right? They said, forget it. We're going back to the way that we learned. It's easier, move forward, and here you go. And so,
I heard that too.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, Kristen, anything? You've been quiet today. You were kind of in the dark.
I think your power went out, right?
I think
you got to move around
every single time. I was kicking my legs, like, hello.
Get a fan in there. Get a fan in there so it turns.
I do. I think that you should probably teach a class on math for the Common Core when you get into this, because that is it's terrible.
How to go?
My 5-year-old's working on reading, so there's that. It's been fun.
Yeah, I hope it's not Dr. Seuss, because those are really bad books, I hear.
Oh, it's that dark military sense of humor. Kristen's like, oh, should we say that?
I'm like, smile.
No, I can understand the Pepe Le Pew. He's a little annoying anyway, so move on.
So, Greg, you did something really interesting that I think a lot of people consider when they get out of the military service, right? When they're either not 100% sure that they're going to get out or not. How was your transition to the reserves? And how did you really get that started, right? So you hear a lot of people are like, yeah, I know I'm going to get out, I'll take a break for a little bit, and then I'm going to go into the reserves, and then nothing.
Yeah. So I knew from even before I started the process, if I was going to get out, I was going to stay in the reserves because, I'm still a member of the legacy retirement system. So had I made a clean break, those 12 years of active duty would have got me nothing. And in some cases, that's okay. But there are a lot of other intangibles in still being in uniform, and I wasn't quite ready to give all that stuff up. So I definitely gave a lot of consideration to staying in the reserves. When I finally figured out where I was going to end up, it became somewhat challenging to find a Marine Corps Reserve unit. I had to evaluate some other options, like maybe potentially joining the Army, or the Army National Guard, or something like that.
There's worse things. You could have joined the Air Force, right?
Yeah. So luckily, I got hooked up with a really good prior service recruiter who helped smooth that process over. And those guys were fantastic. They helped an active duty guy understand what's this thing about the reserves, but also sort of the process of getting the paperwork started took a long time to make it through because of the certain wickets that have to be met and how billets are connected, making sure that funding, all that stuff lines up. And all of this is happening when I'm not even able to see anybody. So, I've been a reservist now for almost a year, and I've never actually drilled in my unit. It's all been remote drills because of COVID. So,
wow.
Probably not the best person to ask about how the reserves are going. But
it's going the same for everybody. So.
Yeah, but I'm still able to contribute and to be a part of things that are going on is still pretty good, and still have that connection to service.
And I'll give you an example. My son's in the Army, so we can make fun of him, but he's up in Anchorage, Alaska, airborne, got there, medic, gung-ho, COVID. They didn't do anything, right? So they were like stuck in their room for so long, barely not able to do anything. So I totally understand that, this whole year has been kind of a mess for everybody. So hopefully we'll get through it. We're on the other side of it. Looking back, I know because COVID messed everything up, and you said I needed to start earlier. So are you saying start the moment you even have 4 years left, 3 years left? I mean, did you have that much of a, I mean, because for me, when I was in, I started working on my bachelor's, and I got my master's, and I knew I was getting out, and I knew what I was going to do. So I had planned, you know, the whole time I was in, I was going to school because I knew I was going to get out. Some people don't do that.
Yeah. I think everybody's transition story is a little bit different. But given all of the things that you need to do and sort of the compression that happens as you are, getting close to the end, I think at least a year out of planning is probably the bare minimum that you need to do. I know the guidance has recently changed about how soon out you can take TRS and what those requirements are. But in addition to those, all of the other stuff that you need to do in order to make sure that you have a smooth transition and to be able to take advantage of all of the internships and other veteran services that are available, the sooner that you sort of start going down that path, the better, because you can take advantage of those things and have those opportunities where if you don't plan until you're only a few months out because you're still on the fence, you really don't have very many opportunities. And that's kind of unfortunate because there's a lot of great things that you can do. So I don't know about 4 years. 4 years might be a lot of time. A lot can happen in 4 years. But if you know you're going to get out, then definitely start understanding what the requirements are and what things are available to you and at what point. So coming up with a good transition plan, and also starting to reach out to folks who have done it or have some advice is a really good thing. That's one of the things I was really thankful for, is that I had some good mentors who were able to connect me through services and opportunities that I knew nothing about, and I wouldn't have had that had I not started having those conversations early enough.
And we need to get some lists of those people so we can put them on our site so people know who to go through. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also got I had a good dose of what are you doing with you're 10 years, why? You're 12 years, what do you why are you getting out? So it's good that folks are looking out for your best interest, and trying to tell you maybe you aren't a beautiful and unique snowflake, and maybe you need to evaluate your life choices a little bit. So a little dose of truth goes a long way.
Well, and I also think when you first come in, you don't always have, you're not married, you don't have kids. And as you grow and get that and move on, your life changes. And so yes, I know the military is the military, but it's still a career, so we change our career every so many years. So we have to still look at what is my plan? What is my future? So what I'm hearing here and what I've heard before is plan, just plan.
Absolutely. You wouldn't, if you're a professional athlete or even like a semi-professional athlete, you wouldn't just show up to a competition without, a lot of practice. And it kind of sounds a little bit cliche, but, your transition is sort of like a sport. And so, for me, it was really beneficial, again, to have those mock interviews where people are actually offering you a job, and then it's like, no, it's not you, it's me, because I was able to understand more about who I am, what I want, and also the dynamics of sort of having that interview relationship with employers, reading between the lines in the compensation discussions was also very beneficial, because those are just skill sets that you may not have, or may never have learned if the first and only job you've had so far is being in the military. So starting early, getting all that practice in, and it's how you can be successful.
So given that the industry that you kind of work in, right? So a lot of my younger Marines are looking to leap into like the air quote thick technology, despite the fact that every industry uses technology to an extent, right? But a little bit more towards what you do, are looking at are looking at potentially doing that in the future after they leave service, what advice would you give them about like what type of classes or courses or familiarity, like what can they do, right, as they're coming down to that clock, right, and they're running up against the EAS clock, or ETS if you're in the Army. What should they be looking at in their background? Because I think just saying like, yeah, like I think if I remember correctly, your background is originally in economics, I think from the boat school.
Yep.
That's what I call the Naval Academy. There's boats there. I didn't get in a boat until I was like 23 after my first deployment. Like
They're not boats.
It's a big boat. It's a water taxi, whatever. But what advice would you give them in regards to the background or the type of education they should be looking at? Because I think, there's an episode that we did with Rebecca Hannigan in regards to like actually finding out what I want to learn about, so that when I grow up and figure out what I want to do in the future, what should have I taken?
Yeah. So when it comes to tech jobs, there are a lot of opportunities, and it's really important that somebody who's looking for that transition understands what it is that they want to do, because interviewing for a software developer role is totally different than it would be for an engineer role or for something else. So first, I guess the first place to start is doing some research on either what company you want to work for, so what those roles are that are offered at that organization, but also what is it that interests you. And one of the things that I think I've seen a lot of in interviewing candidates for jobs is folks tend to have a really focused skill set, and in some cases that's really good if you're getting hired for one very specific thing. But it can somewhat be a detriment if you're not broad enough, if you don't have enough exposure to other things. So your self-education plan is really important, and evaluating. So if you want a tech job, knowing a programming language is a must if you want to be a developer. But not having any exposure to the family of other programming languages out there can definitely handicap you. So the common, I guess, description is you should be somewhat like a pie-shaped individual. So you have a wide range of skill sets, but you're very deep in one or two of them. And so a lot of folks, though, don't have that broad brush because they've never really studied anything else. They've just taken their background and applied it. And that really comes through in technical interviews. So most companies, if you want a tech job, are going to give you some kind of whiteboard type aptitude test where they give you off the wall questions and are assessing your reasoning as you step through solving those problems. And so if you don't have any exposure to anything other than that one thing, it can be really hard to try to problem solve or think critically. So there's a lot of good resources out there. There's a lot of great blogs that talk about, if you want a job at Amazon or you want a job at, pick a company, of the things that you should do to prepare for those. And in some cases that preparing for a specific role for an organization can be somewhat of a full-time job. If you want to ace your interview at Google, there's a lot of things that you need to do to prepare for that. And so again, back to your point, Ed, about starting early, it's really important that you understand that and appreciate that you're not just going to take the uniform off one day and then walk into a large technology-oriented company with minimal background. So as far as what resources to pursue, though, Chloe, I think it kind of depends on what you want to do and sort of what your comfort level is. So when I knew that I was going to transition, I started preparing for a certification exam. So I took the INFORMS, which is the Institute for Professional Management and Operations Research Sciences. They're a certification for a analytic professional. So it's the INFORMS CAP exam. And I thought that was a fantastic opportunity to study analytics, kind of a wide range of different disciplines within analytics, because you have to understand, in order to pass the exam, you need to know a lot different areas of analytics that you might not normally have known. Things like, I knew nothing about marketing analytics. It's a good thing I studied that, because now I'm doing some of it. But that helped me really hone in on, when I was asked some of those questions in the interview process. Having that background was really helpful. And
so you're telling me to specialize in just basket weaving, not underwater basket weaving?
Something like that. But
okay, just want to make sure.
But make sure you know how to put it together tightly.
Exactly. Also, that's something that's kind of important is the military will pay for a lot of those certifications, and in some cases, you can get them as a part of your your current job. So, back to planning early. If you know that you're going to transition and you want to take the Security Plus exam or get some other type of certification, lining those opportunities up just helps you in the long run, and in some cases can save you tens of thousands of dollars.
All right. You're getting close to the end here. Any last words of wisdom for anybody?
I would say treat your transition like a team sport. So if you haven't figured out who's kind of in your crew who can help you out, that's a must. So expand your circle. So you might have a really good group of friends, but they might not be the best people to help you. So be willing to cold call some folks, reach out to folks on LinkedIn, or folks that you've worked for in the past, or friends of friends, to help you either get an inside track and where you want to work, but also just give you some life lessons about some things that they learned the hard way. The common pitfalls, things that they wish they would have done differently, because in some cases they're things that you would never have thought to do. And so if you're going at it alone, you're alone and unafraid, you're going to miss out on a lot. So look for opportunities to engage folks along the way. And, when you're in the position on the other side of the fence, make sure that you pay it forward so that you can help those folks out. If somebody reaches out to you and cold calls you on LinkedIn, take the time to respond to them, or, give them a phone call, because it can be transition is very stressful. So just having somebody that takes the time to write a response, or returns your message, can be really kind of a game changer. So look for those opportunities, which I'm really glad, Chloe, that you reached out to me to talk a little bit today, because I feel like I definitely want to connect with anybody that I can help. I might not necessarily be the best person, but I'm happy to connect you with other people that can provide you resources, stories, access to people, or whatever it is.
Can we keep your quote?
Which one?
The one, treat your transition as a team sport.
Absolutely.
That we'll put that up there. That's your quote. And we'll have that part of your thing.
Any final questions, Ed or Kristen?
I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Greg, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you were busy staring at math problems to make math fun again.
Yeah.
And sorry,
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, it's definitely not me. I thank you for taking your time. I know that for the listeners out there, anyone who reaches out to Greg Zerr, or even us at Helping the Brave, we're more than happy to help and assist. If you're looking for math help, for tutoring, don't come to me. Maybe someone else on this team can help. But I just wanted to say, appreciate everything that you've done, and continuing to pay it forward.
And don't go away. But remember, we're here on Tuesdays at 2:30 Pacific and Thursdays 2:30 Pacific. Figure it out. That's East Coast 5:30 if you don't know. And we'll see you next Thursday. So thanks for tuning in today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you very much.